So hey everybody, so today I'm taking a little bit of a field trip. So I do not have a shop project for you today. Instead, we're going exploring.
This is a $40 billion risk.
So we are in downtown London, Ontario. And if you don't know where that is, just draw a line between Detroit, Michigan, and Toronto, Ontario. And London is basically halfway in between those two cities. So I'm standing in front of the Talbot Street church in downtown London. It was built in 1881, so it's about 135 years old. And I'm going to go explore the attic. So why would I want to do that? Well, I think architecture, old architecture, is kind of fascinating. And then there's the whole, exploring a semi-forbidden place that I thought would be interesting also. But the main point is that in the 1950s, this building was condemned. And it's still standing. So obviously they fixed it back then. And that is in the attic, where we will see what happened up there. It's been renovated obviously several times since then. This glass atrium was added in 2011. There was a major renovation on the interior and other areas in 2000. And so here, let's go have a look. So here we are inside the sanctuary. It is pretty large in here. It's about 70 to 80 feet long, front to back. Side to side, it's about 45 feet. And if you pan up so you can see the ceiling, I'm not sure. My guess is it's about 40 feet high from top to bottom in here. The balcony here wraps around all three sides of the auditorium, comes almost right to the front. It's got very interesting decorative ironwork all along the front edges of the balcony. So those beams up there that are running along the ceiling, those are not real beams. Back in the 50s, the church was condemned because there was a crack in one of the trusses and the walls of the church were actually separating. I think originally the roof was slate and there was an immense amount of weight pushing down and it was all separating out, and that's when they condemned the church. So they brought in an engineer to fix it, and one of the things they did is they added these tie rods, which are actually tying the walls of the church together, and these beams are just fake boxes that are put around those tie rods. From out here in the atrium, we can zoom way up there. You can see beside the white duct pipe, you can just see the head of the bolt of one of the tie rods that is holding the church together. So the balcony is full of all these individual flip-up theater style seats. And check out the railing, barely up to my knee. You would never be able to build something like that nowadays because it's a serious code violation for safety reasons, but in an old building like this, it's all grandfathered in, and so we get to keep it. From up here, you can just see how all the pews are curved. I can just imagine from a woodworking point of view how much work that was to make curved pews for this place versus straight. And so finally, way up here in the far back of the balcony is what we came to see. I've set up a ladder here. The ladder goes way up to the hatch, which is the access to the attic. So the first thing you're going to notice is how tall it is in here. If you were expecting to see us crawling around like you do in a house attic, that's not happening. It's got to be at least 20 to 25 feet from peak to catwalk. So back in the year 2000, they did a major renovation in the church, and one of the things they did is they added this catwalk up here. Before that, you would have been walking from beam to beam to beam, which I would not have liked doing considering, the 30 to 40 foot drop that there is down below. Note that there is no insulation up here at all. First of all, nothing was built insulated back in the 1880s. And we don't want to add insulation now because we want the heat to come up because it keeps the roof warm, which keeps the snow melted, which keeps the weight off of the roof. As well, this is 130-year-old wood up here and it has always had heat around it. And if you were to insulate it, you'd be changing the wood because now it would have a hot and a cold cycle, and the engineers strongly recommended against that. All that metal strapping around the ends of those joists, that was all added back in 2000 during a renovation. Before that, if you can believe it, these were all just toe-nailed into the sides of these trusses. As you walk along, you've got to duck every time so you don't whack your head. So the lights are hanging on these chains, and if you need to change a light bulb or work on the light, they have this hoist up there and they just lower the light right down to the floor. So back in the 50s, they discovered that this truss here was cracked and the walls of the church were spreading, and that's when they condemned the church. And they brought in an engineer who worked out a solution, and it's really quite elegant, is that they just sistered on this massive beam on top of it, and it is bolted through the damaged truss all along. That pulls it back together and has saved the church. Here's the front. We're now over the stage, pulpit area. The brickwork from the original end of the building. Here we are at the front of the church, and you can just see this weirdly bent support beam there. And again, they came up with a very simple solution that the engineer agreed that they could just add that straight beam and tie it into the curved beam to strengthen it. Here's another one of the main trusses, and during the 2000 renovation they found a minor crack in it, so they just added on a little bit more reinforcing, just sort of a smaller version of what they did to the major cracked truss back in the 50s. Here's just one of the central posts. You can see as it goes right to the ceiling, or right to the peak, not to the ceiling. I'm above the ceiling. And so that brings us to the end of this little field trip. I sure had fun poking around in the attic. I hope you enjoyed coming along for the ride. And we will see you next time. I do not have a shop project or a furniture project, and let's try that again.